Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Spill, a movie night podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea. Film Spill, if you already don't know, is a podcast that comes out every week, and we talk about a movie by a female filmmaker every episode. We also discuss women in the entertainment industry in general, and we play slumber party type games, spill entertainment gossip, and get to know each other and our guest. Today, I am doing this episode solo, and I will be talking about Kitty Green's drama film, The Assistant, 2019. But first, it's time for Name That Episode. This week, we will be discussing The Flight Attendant, Season 1, Episode 1 and 2, directed by Susan Fogel, who is a writer, director, and producer. Susan has also wrote for the film Booksmart, 2019, that is directed by Olivia Wilde. She also wrote for the Addams Family 2 film. This week, I will not be playing a slumber party type game, and I'm just going to dive right into this week's film. As I stated before, we will be talking about The Assistant. The Assistant is available to watch on Hulu, Prime Video, and Apple TV. This discussion will contain spoilers for the film, so if you haven't already seen it, go watch and come back afterwards to hear our thoughts. The synopsis of this film is Jane, who is a recent college graduate, is an aspiring film producer who has just landed her dream job as a junior assistant to a powerful entertainment mogul. Her day is much like any other assistant, making coffee, ordering lunch, arranging travel accommodations, and taking phone messages. But as Jane follows her daily routine, she grows increasingly aware of the abuse that insidiously colors every aspect of her workday, an accumulation of degradations against which she decides to take a stand. My initial thoughts from watching this film, I actually first watched this film when I was on a plane to Miami. I was super excited, but unfortunately I had to watch the film with only subtitles. I didn't have any headphones, and I was on an airplane that required you to have headphones in order to watch the movie. So I watched this film in silent mode, but did have the captions to read. And I was really intrigued by just the story in general. I felt like I could relate to this so much, especially in the film industry. And it reminded me of when I was interning downtown in the Tribeca area. I actually had to do a double take because I really thought that that was the building that I interned in. It was not, but it really looked familiar. Maybe all the Tribeca buildings look fairly similar to each other. But I really did enjoy this film. I think it had an important message to say. Not many films relay this type of message, and especially after the Me Too movement, this film really broadened everyone's point of view as to what goes down in just like a work environment in general. I have firsthand experienced some very poor treatment, and that goes to say that I'm not speaking on behalf of every, film production or production studio that's out there, but I can tell you this, that it has not changed since the movie has emerged. There are things that still need to be fixed within the film industry. It is going to take time. I don't know when or if we'll ever get there, but it takes a group of people to hurdle this challenge. So until then, I feel like unfortunately people still remain with this difficulty of navigating the entertainment industry, and the mistreatment that's behind it. And it's such a competitive field, and I think that's why that plays into it, is because it is a competitive field, that everyone wants the same job, everyone wants the same opportunity, and it's only a select few who can, receive the job offer. So people will do anything to receive that type of validation that they're going to succeed in the film industry. But I have learned it does not take you to work under someone to succeed in the film industry. What you need is to just put yourself out there. And I tell that to myself every day as a creative, is just to put yourself out there, put your work out there, and you will be seen for your worth. Because unfortunately, sometimes you're not. When you work for corporate especially. I think the corporate world is tough. You do need a great backbone to navigate that. And it's not for everyone. Some people can totally navigate it and oppose probably everything that I'm saying, which is great. I'm happy. If you have had a great experience in the film industry, kudos to you. I have had my fair share of not great experiences in the film industry, but hey, I'm still in it. I love film, and that's not going to stop me for going for what I want to do in my life and going for my dreams. So that's a little spiel that I got going on there. But let's get into who Kitty Green is, the director, writer, and producer for The Assistant. She is an Australian film director. She does it all. Not only is she a writer, director, producer, but she also does camera work and editing, which, I mean, as a filmmaker, I feel like you do have to do all of it, especially when you're making your own films and you're creating your own budget and everything else. Making a film costs a lot of money, so to save money, you are a jack of all trades and you do it all. That's how I see things. That's why I end up doing it all, because I don't got money to pay for other people to do it. So I had to learn to do it myself. The majority of her projects have been documentaries, while only one has been a narrative-driven story. Kitty and Julia are partnering up again for the upcoming social thriller, The Royal Hotel, which will be distributed by Neon in the US. The film is scheduled to be released in 2023. Some background on the film: it scored a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes. To prepare for the film, Green spoke with people who have worked under toxic, often predatory bosses in the entertainment industry. Her interviews included former assistants at film studios, agencies, and production companies, some of whom had worked at the Weinstein Company. Green picked up on patterns of women feeling disempowered, threatened, or ignored, incorporating them into the screenplay. She said she experienced some early difficulties in getting the film made due to it being critical of the film industry, and I can totally see that. But hey, like I said, some stories really need to be told, and this was definitely one of them. Green said that there were several female executives who really loved it and said that they would recommend it to their colleagues, but then Green would receive emails back from these executives that said their colleagues were refusing to even read it. Unfortunately, the film industry is still dominated by men. They uphold the majority of the job roles in any production company. You can even see that with the credits, honestly. So that the number hasn't changed drastically throughout the years. If you look at the statistics online with how many female or non-binary directors that we've had between the years of 2019 and 2022, there's only been about like a 10% increase. And probably not even, maybe even 5, but we're at like a 34% rate right now, which I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that changes. And hopefully we get more female directors out there who are willing to share their story and willing to create these stories for us to watch. In December 2018, Julia Gardner joined the cast of the film. Green asked Gardner after seeing her on the TV series The Americans. The Assistant had its world premiere at the Telluride Film Festival on August 30th, 2019. Shortly afterwards, Bleecker Street acquired distribution rights to the film and released it in theaters on January 31st, 2020. It also screened as an official spotlight selection at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival. Green said that they had almost a month of rehearsals because the shoot was so short. They had a limited budget and they only had 18 days to shoot the film. Kitty states in an interview, "I think it was nearly 3 weeks of Julia and I having conversations about the text, and we met some assistants together and chatted to them. And Julia went and studied her manager's office to see how people went about their day." In terms of production, the films that influenced this film is Janine Dellman, 1975, is the biggest influence on it in its routines, gesture, and rhythm. They also looked into David Fincher's in terms of production design and lighting, things like Zodiac 2007 and Mindhunter 2017, and then a mix of things like Full Metal Jacket 1987 in terms of Dehumanization, 9 to 5, 1980, and women's office films. So it was really a mixed bag of different films that influenced this film. So some key things that I want to specifically talk about is that we see Jane being the first one to enter the office and prepare for the day ahead, and she is the last one to leave the office. That happens a lot of the time, especially in an entry-level job. To show your worth, you are there bright and early, making sure that everything is going according to plan. The execs have what they need to prepare for their day, and yeah, you work long hours, and then you don't get paid enough to be working those long hours. You get paid minimum wage, maybe $15 an hour, especially if you're working as a PA. You're working 12-hour plus days, sometimes having to work overtime without wanting to or being asked to. And yeah, you do that for years until you can, stir up your hours, build them up, and then work maybe as a UPM, a unit production manager, and then making your way up from there. The ladder varies for everyone. Everyone does it differently. They do have a DGA that has a program that's like 2 years, a 2-year extensive program that will give you your hours so you can become an AD, but you do have to be selected, and there's a bunch of people who apply each year. So it is a luck of the draw if you do get into that. Not everyone knows about that, and I know that I learned about that this year. We see in the movie that the majority of the people in the office are male, and that is what you see when you go into any production office. The majority of people are male, and that doesn't surprise me ever. Having to apologize for things that aren't your fault, that is something that I noticed Julia, aka Jane, having to do a lot. Her boss wanting her to write up an apology for her quote-unquote mistakes that weren't hers to take responsibility for. And like I said, it's a feeling of male dominance. These men feel like they have this dominance over women, and for them to seek that power that they so crave, they ask for things they do things to make you feel so small so they can feel big, if that makes any sense. The dominance that men think that they have over women in work environments is so mind-blowing, and it's so unfortunate, but there's so much sexism, and I don't know what the reasoning behind that is. I don't know if it's just a person-to-person thing, but I see this so often, and things just need to change. Sometimes as a woman, I feel like I don't have a voice, and I'm not taken seriously, especially the way that I look. I look like I'm 12. So I feel like I'm not taken seriously, and when I have things to say, they are shut down. And that's why I saw myself a lot in this character, in Jane, because I saw myself in those types of situations. And it is unfortunate once I read into like how Green was able to write in this character and the types of interviews that she upheld with other people who worked in this industry. It's just so disheartening to see that other people are going through this, and you're really not alone. There are other people who are going through this and who are dealing with this hardship, but we just have to stand together and create opportunities for ourselves and for other women out there. And that's why Onyx became a thing, because we wanted it to be a female and non-binary driven production company, that we do feel that inclusivity and that we feel like we have a voice and that we can share our projects and just be in a creative room. So I'm very honored that I was able to meet this group of individuals who have given me that room of opportunity. So one thing that I noticed is that we never see the boss's name. We don't know who he is. We never see him either. So there's like this mystery cloud being held over him, and you kind of want to know who he is. You kind of want to know who this boss is, who barely comes into work. gets to make his own schedule and people work around him. And I see this very often because a lot of the people who do get these types of jobs, it's passed down through family generations. So maybe their father was an executive producer. Maybe their father is a director and they were given the job because they have a parent, they have a relative, or even a friend who works in the industry that was able to give them this opportunity. And so they might not be equipped for it, but just because they know the person is the reasoning behind how they got hired. And I saw that in The Assistant when this new girl gets hired and she gets put into a hotel, and obviously she's sleeping with the boss, and that's how she got the position. And honestly, it doesn't surprise me because it happens so often. And I know some studios were going to change that dynamic. But there is a list that I heard someone tell me about because they heard about this list. I think it is the immediate hire list. I don't know. Don't quote me on this one, but I forget the name of the list. But there is a list that has names of people who have relatives in the entertainment industry, and they are the first ones to get hired in production. So regardless if you have sent in your application, maybe you have sent in the same application multiple times, it doesn't matter because the person who is related to whoever is going to get hired over you because they are related to that person. Unfortunately, that is the truth of the game, and it still is today. People get their jobs because they know someone, and that's why networking is so big, because they do persuade you to network, meet people, and potentially that's how you're gonna find your job because that person can put in a good word for you. But it is a tough industry out there, and that doesn't always happen the way that you would hope. The way that HR is talking to Jane is very rough. Dialogue is very much on point with how a male figure undermines what a woman has to say, especially when they have power. They make you feel like you're the problem because you're speaking up. And that happens so often because people do not want to take responsibility for what they've done, and they don't want to confront the issue because they know they can't because of the power that that individual upholds. So they make you feel like you're the problem and that you need to fix yourself. If not, there's someone else who's waiting in line to take your position. And unfortunately, that's facts. People who will just stay quiet and take the job, no matter how poorly they are treated, they'll take it because they just want the experience or craving to even just get a foot in the door. And they know that and they take advantage. Let's start getting into the production design. The production took place in New York City, of course. There is a lot of greens and tans. And Jane's first outfit is pink and blue, and that is the outfit that she wears throughout the day. The movie does take place Jane's day in the life type thing. So like what her day in the life looks like, and we see that throughout the whole movie. So her main outfit throughout the whole movie contrasts those colors, and it's very appealing to the eye. It's very mellow. In the cinematography, there's a lot of bird's eye view shots that shows Jane going about certain tasks. For example, eating cereal, opening boxes, washing dishes, and stocking the fridge. The main character is Jane, who is played by Julia Gardner, as I have mentioned before. She is an Emmy Award-winning actress. She also plays Ruth in Ozarks. If you haven't seen her in Ozarks, go check that out. It is so good. I've seen all of the seasons, and I actually got my fiance into it. So if I can get her into it, anyone can get into it. The dialogue, the script is short. There's not much dialogue in it, but that is just because the movie is more focused on the toll that this environment is taking on Jane's mental state, and you see her start dwindling down, and it's starting to get to her, and she has only been at this position for 5 weeks, and within 5 weeks she's already starting to feel that intensity of pressure, of of unworthiness. She's going through a lot of emotions. She's overworking herself for little pay, for little due diligence, for little credit. And that is just to get her a foot in the door. And you know what? Watching this movie, I tell myself, like, I would never put myself through that. I wouldn't want to be Jane. But at the same time, I went through that. Haven't we all gone through that in the film industry? Haven't we had that moment that Jane has felt where you feel like your world is just crumbling down. You don't know what to do. And you know what moment really stuck to me is the final scene where Jane goes into, I believe it looks like a deli, and grabs a blueberry muffin and starts eating that for dinner. And she has like the microwavable dinner, and that's literally the life, especially living in New York City because it's so expensive. Microwavable food is all you can afford, especially a muffin. Like, you're not even having a real dinner because you've been working all day. So you have like 2 meals a day, barely, and a little snack that you can afford that's like $2 because you're on a budget. You're getting paid bare minimum, and you're pretty much working to pay for housing because rent's so expensive in New York City. The themes of the film is in which the details that Jane perceives have an obvious meaning that is being overlooked, denied, or ignored by the people who work in our office, and that Jane is being harshly and rigorously trained to dismiss everything that's going around when she knows the truth behind certain things. Everyone knows, obviously, too, but they know how to play the game. They know how to go about it and to ignore the issue, even though it's an issue and that it shouldn't be happening. Women shouldn't be treated like property. We shouldn't be treated like rag dolls that you can just use and just throw around and feel like you have some sort of power over us. There needs to be more equality in the film industry, and I'm hoping that the next generation of women and non-binary people can do that, because things just need to get better. We need to have more healthy environments for filmmakers to properly strive in this industry. Because right now, I don't know. That is everything for this episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed listening. And if you haven't watched this movie already, please go watch. Let me know what you think. All right. And thank you for listening. This has been Film Spill, a movie night podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. All are at Film Spill Pod. Tell a friend about the podcast if you like, and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. That will help other people find Film Spill too. And until next time, don't cry over a spilled film.